We're back. That's right. Public Works Committee actually happened yesterday. I'm a few days behind on committee meetings, which they're kind of boring. But whenever Public Works happens or something exciting like public safety, I'm going to put my attention to that. But let's just get into it. Looks like the whole crew has showed up.
Good evening, and welcome to our Public Works Committee.
Oh, hey, look, Brian Bowery is here too. If you remember in the last video, Carlina was like, our thoughts and prayers are for Brian Bowery, who has the flu or whatever.
November 21st, 2024. We will begin with introductions with my counselors to my left.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mike Dilk, District 24.
Got the Jolly Rancher too.
District 21.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Mowry, District 25.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Jessica McCormick, District 16.
And she looks like
Thank you,
shit.
Madam Chair. Nick Roberts, District 4.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Andy Nielsen, District 14.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilor Dan Boost, District 3, Washington, Lawrence Townships.
Good evening, Chairwoman Jones. Krista Carlino, District 11, West Side.
Thank you, Chairwoman Jones. Councilor Jared Evans, representing District 17 on the far west side.
Thank you, and I'm Kristen Jones, representing District 18. Before we get into our presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Evans just for a brief moment.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Director Herget, thank you for coming before us today. Councilor Jones and I have both been receiving a significant amount of communications from our constituents and business owners about the West Washington Street Bridge closure.
Yeah, I would say so. For those who don't know of what's going on exactly, so there's a merge point between Rockville Road and West Washington, and there's a bridge over there. A couple years ago, they actually did work to it. So when I found out earlier this year they were going to be more work to it, I was like, what the fuck? We just did it. But anyway, so not that long ago, I think a couple of months ago, they said work was going to be stopped indefinitely. And nobody knew what was going on or why it was being stopped. And then later to find out, they found some things after tearing some of them apart. I actually went over there. I walked it myself while I was out canvassing one day. I wanted to see what was going on. And I did not know what I was looking at. But one of the meetings that I went to recently, they were putting up, before the election, they were putting up a petition. I think some of the owners did too, of just, hey, let's just put it back together so we can get a road going here, you know, because that is a huge corridor. That's a major corridor to get to downtown. And there's also businesses over there. And I forgot who wrote the article. But they were talking in the article. It was one of the businesses that had just opened up, I believe a liquor store, and they said, if I knew that things were this messed up over here, I would have never even done it. And I was laughing about it. I was like, if you have never lived in Indy, then you wouldn't know. But if you live in Indy, you would have known. A lot of businesses are leaving Indianapolis and they're moving to Hamco or Johnson County. They don't want to deal with this crap anymore. In fact, if you go and look at the budget right now, the amount of permits that they've been putting out has been a significant reduction compared to last year. I think they're like $1.2 million less than they did last year. And I don't know if it's because of BNS or people aren't applying for this much, but one would have to think that nobody wants to deal with Indianapolis bullshit anymore. So it is funny that they're actually talking about this now because I'm very interested.
So I did just want to let you know that after tonight's meeting, I'd like to give you some petitions that were given to us
there you
on
go.
behalf of some of those business owners and constituents, and have subsequent conversations with you or someone from DPW about the process as it unfolds and how we can keep them more informed.
This is nothing but like virtue signaling, basically making this in the open and saying that he's speaking about it. So it can be like, hey man, did you not watch the video? I talked about it. What he really should have been doing is releasing the emails of what him and Hergy have been talking about, or whoever in DPW is running that whole shit show.
And, that said, I do want to thank you and the department, because I know you guys have been really reacting to the inquiries that we've been making and communicating better and getting information out forward. So just wanted to let you know about that.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Chairman.
I would have totally fired that the DPW director already if I was mayor. It's like, what the hell is going on? This is multiple projects now. And my theory is that it probably has something to do with some of these contractors, some of these DEI hires.
Thank you, Director Herget, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you so much.
And before I dive into the presentation, I don't want to not take the opportunity to respond, if I may, to the petition and
Shoddy.
Councilor Evans. I know that you and I have had multiple conversations, as have you and I, Chairwoman, about the project. Jared, you and I met out at Indigo, also with Indigo staff, and beyond just the Department of Public Works prioritizing this bridge and doing everything we can to get it open in as timely a manner as possible, we're coordinating with our other partners. The whole reason that this bridge was even inventoried in the first place and the original scoping done and the original deck rehabilitation programmed was in light of the Blue Line project. So we were trying to get in front of Indigo. And thankfully we got in front of Indigo enough that we're going to have time to get the bridge reconstructed correctly so that it will be traversable in the future.
So this whole thing, okay, so that explains a lot now, because I was wondering, why are we doing this? We should have been doing it a couple years ago. I believe it was even during COVID, when nobody was really driving over there, of them doing the work on this bridge. And now that we find out, it's like, oh, well, we want to get everything all fixed up, so for Indigo because of the Blue Line. It's like, okay, so you really didn't have to do anything right now. Now we know that none of the stuff actually had to happen. You were just trying to take a proactive approach to it.
What we ran into in this situation was something that once you got below the decking and into areas of the substructure that weren't visible from the outside, it was so deteriorated that this necessitated an emergency closure. This was not a decision that was made lightly. We do understand that this has had a tremendous impact on both your districts and the neighborhoods and businesses in the surrounding area.
I doubt they know.
Emergency. It was not a traversable bridge, and we owed it to the traveling public from a safety perspective to shut it down. And so we are doing everything we can to expedite what we have control over to move forward with the project, and coordinating with our partners who we know are going to be doing either utility work or, in Indigo's case, work in the right-of-way in the future to make sure that we're as least disruptive to the community as we can be over the coming years as Blue Line goes through the area as well.
So what it sounds to me is that that corridor is going to be shut down for years. For years. Not FO 4 years, FOR. Not FOUR, FOR. Who knows how long this is going to be shut down for? We don't know. Hergy doesn't know. DPW doesn't know. This is just a giant shit show. This is exactly why nobody wants to deal with Indianapolis anymore, because of people like Hergy over here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Herget. I know there's a similar, maybe not super similar, I know that's very emergent, but
Yeah.
West 30th Street Bridge in my district, I've received several calls and emails about that project as well. And
Sounds
that
like my
extended
chair.
closure, and that there were some issues with design and things of that nature. And I know there's at least one constituent in the audience tonight. If you want to respond now, fine, but definitely would appreciate to have a conversation offline or at this time about that situation as well. We know that safety is critical. It's a major thoroughfare that even individuals who bike as their mode of transportation around the city makes it very unsafe. They have to go down to 16th Street, and it's very unsafe for that.
So this, okay, so yeah, completely different situation here. One person's like, I can't ride my bike into work, and the other one says, hey, we can't even get food for people. We can't get materials to people. People can't get to work. Like thousands of people can't get to work. Now, one guy's like, I can't take my bike to the shop. What a dope. Carlino is crap. Crap Carlino.
Individual, and so appreciate any updates on that as well. Thank you, Director.
Yeah, a good question, and also a project that I know has raised a lot of concern and concern that we do not take lightly at the department. A couple of factors on the 30th Street Bridge. Number one, that bridge was always scheduled to be a reconstruction. That bridge was one that we put in through the MPO to fund, and so that adds a layer of complication. It is not specifically a DPW local project as the other bridge is. That bridge does require coordination with INDOT because it's funded through the MPO. So when you think about change orders, when you think about change in construction schedule, materials, things like that, there are multiple layers of approval there. Beyond that, we're in a situation where we're well underway on what is also a historic bridge reconstruction, which adds additional complexity to the construction timeline. Unfortunately, there were some issues last year that we thought we had resolved. Moving into this construction season, thought we were full speed ahead. And unbeknownst to us and completely outside of the department's control, some contracted work was done incorrectly, and there were panels of prefabricated concrete that were poured off-site, brought onto the site, again, all by vendors, and when put into place did not fit what was originally designed and what was originally supposed to be built. That is an inconvenience we know because it's going to continue to draw out the timeline, one that is unforeseen and one that frankly we unfortunately have little control over. And so as those panels are replaced, we have now, I believe, got construction back up and running, and so we are back to full speed ahead and hope to have no more delays. Jason Watt is the construction administrator for DPW. Jason, I'd ask if there's anything to add, or certainly if I misspoke, please correct the record.
Hi, Jason Watt, Administrator of Construction for DPW Engineering.
Jason Watt.
Just a couple things of note. So originally the project, when it was bid, the first bid got rejected because it was too far below, above the engineer's estimate, so we had to rebid the project. By the time we got the project rebid, we had the month of May coming up, so they wanted to close the bridge for the month of May. And then that caused a issue with some environmental concerns. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has a Migratory Bird Protection Act, and there was swallows nesting on the bridge. We had to wait till they were done mating and raising their young before we could take down the nests and start to demo the bridge. And then as we started to demo the bridge, as you're aware, this is a historical bridge. And one of the things that makes this historical is all the decorative limestone pieces. So each one of those pieces had to be taken off the bridge, cataloged, scanned essentially. Any of them that had to be replaced, we had to send to the quarry to get remade. But what ended up happening as we started to go down through the bridge to demolish it, where we were taking it apart piece by piece, we found most of the concrete that's used for the spandrel walls or the facade kind of the bridge were embedded in concrete. So our contractor was having a very difficult time trying to salvage the blocks and remove them from the concrete without damaging the blocks, which were, all these blocks have to go back onto the structure, or we have to order new blocks to replace them. We worked with SHPO, the State Historical Preservation Organization, to try to get an allowance for us to mediate that demolition to where we were able to do it more quickly. And we were able to successfully do that, but unfortunately, a lot of that limestone was no longer salvageable after those demolition efforts. Once we got down to the substructure and the piers, the foundations were extremely deteriorated, and there was a lot of decay in the rebar and the concrete that is the foundation of the bridge. So we had to address that, and we got that taken care of. And then to the point that the director was making, the precast manufacturer manufactures all of the blocks off-site that are going to go back into reconstructing this arch. And there was a lot of those that were racked, or they didn't line up when we tried to place them. So we enlisted some industry experts to come in and try to help us resolve that situation. And we've been able to do so. The precast manufacturer does have to remanufacture some of these
I would want a list of the contractors that fucked this whole thing up. Then put them on the blacklist. Like, we're never going to use you again. You guys totally jacked this thing up. And it's one thing for it to be like your project, right? Like, it's your home project. Yeah, you know, these things happen, whatever. But it's not. It's taxpayers. That's who's funding this whole thing. And we need to set an example of telling all these contractors we have a standard, and the standard is that we want to make sure that we give our people the best product available for the right price, and we want to make sure that we don't fuck up their day, because they give us money if they're more productive.
Segments, but construction's well underway again. I know whenever there's a site sitting similar like West Washington that's vacant, there's no one working, you know, everyone is extremely concerned, as am I. But I am proud to say that the job's back up and running, and the contractor is working on an accelerated schedule as the precast allows. So we're still accepting deliveries of some of it to replace some of the blocks that were not, you know, manufactured properly. So there is a little bit of a bottleneck there that we're working through with the precast manufacturers. But that's a lot of information, I know, and there's a lot more information too. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well done, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that. I know.
I feel like I could trust that guy a lot more. Maybe not, actually. I've only seen them one. You know, I don't trust anybody from DP. I take that back. I don't trust anybody from DPW.
This is not. We're not building Lego bridges out here, right? And the historical piece, the fish, game, and wildlife, all of those factors are really important, and it helps me take that information.
What's up
back
with her
to the
nails,
community,
huh? Huh? What's up with your? You paint your nails black? What are you doing, dirty? Huh? You dirty gal.
Really appreciate the ongoing communication between the department and me as the district counselor.
Getting tatted up, painting your fingernails black.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Director.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And certainly we will have plenty of time as we go through this presentation to continue talking if there are questions on specific construction projects, but I do want to give a brief overview of everything that the department, not just construction, everything the department has been up to over the course of the year, and do so here in November. Thank you, Chairwoman Jones, for allowing that opportunity. I will just start by actually acknowledging sort of the elephant in the room, which is that this will be my last committee hearing. Serving as the Director of the Department of Public Works, as I made my staff know.
Where are you going, Hergy?
Approximately a month ago, and you all know in the last week or two, I have officially resigned from the position, and it has been my pleasure to serve alongside of you over the last 5 years.
Eat shit.
The various roles that I've had the opportunity to, and so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to give this presentation here in November, so that we can kind of bookend my tenure over the last 2 years. It's bittersweet, but I'm incredibly proud of the work that this team has done, and incredibly grateful for the opportunity that you all have given me. So thank you. With that, we will start off with the Finance and Human Resources portion of the presentation. Sam, as you know, is our CFO. I won't ask you to stand because you're sitting next to me, but any members of the Finance or Human Resources team, please stand up and wave. I know Anthony Sartorelli is here for the first time. Anthony is not new to the city. He comes to us from IMPD, where he managed grants, and he is now the revenue manager, filling in for the position that Sam vacated when he became CFO. And so, Anthony, welcome to the team. As you look at all of our vacancies and all of our positions filled throughout the department, I will point to, unfortunately, what you've heard me point to for several quarters.
Okay, we're going to hold on real quick. I wanted to see, because I remember that this guy had, if I remember right, he had no experience with any kind of like public work stuff. So here's his LinkedIn. Experience, Director of DPW, City Council, CFO and Policy Director, U.S. Senate for Deputy State Director and Regional Director. Even his education, it's in political science. And if you remember, you probably don't know, but the person that he replaced, Dan Parker, had zero experience doing any of that stuff as well. He was like the state chair, I think, for the Democrat Party of Indiana. And like he had no idea what he was doing. And now I thought that he was going to replace Hogsett, but now I have second thoughts on that. But if you're going to hire somebody for a position, at least I want some experience. Is that too much to ask for, really? So if you're going to replace him, have it somebody inside of the department or somebody that's familiar with some kind of public work position. Is that too much to ask for? So I'm curious of who's going to replace him.
Which is the staffing numbers at Fleet Services. We continue to have trouble.
I doubt that I'm going to get any
recruiting and
answers
retaining,
either. I'm going to have to wait.
Staff out at Fleet.
Oh.
I will let you know that the latest CBA is going to make a substantial investment in those Fleet Service technicians. So I'm hopeful that that will help address the concern. We did a market analysis at the request of ASME and with the support of ASME.
I would have fired his ass.
The market in central Indiana, and there were instances where our Fleet Services technicians were making 20% or more less than the market average. So we, through this latest CBA, will correct that, and we hope will then lead to better recruitment retention over time. That's especially an important point, being transparent with all of you once we get to the fiscal portion of the presentation, because you'll see the real-time impacts of that. That being said, I am also proud to point out that if you look at our end-of-year report last year, we were running about a 20% vacancy overall. This year we are at 15%.
What does that mean, though? You know, I've noticed that a lot of these directors or people in charge will give it in percentages, but what is that in people? Like, is that 1, 2, 3 people? It's like, oh, we got 5% less now. Okay, well, did you only hire 1 extra person so you got down there? Like, give me the people numbers.
So we were trending in the right direction, and my hope is with the CBAs in place and more competitive to the market wages, that you'll continue to see those staffing numbers trend in the right direction. Next slide, please. Speaking of Anthony, this is his slide now. So he tracks all the revenue coming in for us, and what you can see here is the actual realized revenue generated from motor vehicle tax and the gas tax distribution at the state. I would also note that, again, this does include now the population fix from Senate Bill 283 last year, and so this is the newly elevated distribution that we're receiving that allows for us to program the residential streets as well. Next slide.
Hold up. Listen, Hergy. Nice try. All right, you're lucky. You're lucky that a lot of these people don't pay attention, but I do. All right, what do we got here? Now, blue is the budget. The red is the revenue. Let's see here. It looks like your budget is higher than your revenue most of the time. You had like 300,000 there. Oh, what the hell is going on here? November, $6.8 million of revenue, but you had $7.4 million of budget. Looks like you're spending a little bit more than you're taking in, huh, there, buddy?
Population fix from
Why
Senate
is
Bill
that?
283 last year.
You need to get your stuff to better. You need to get your stuff together.
That we're receiving that allows for us to program the residential streets as well. Next slide. Policy and planning. Natalie and team members from policy and planning, if you were here, I think Rachel was the...
Now, if we are wanting to, I don't know, balance the budget, we should probably get rid of stuff that's really not going to help the city overall, like the Vision Zero Administrator, Office of Sustainability, XBE departments, anything to do with affirmative action, we need to cut.
The latest member of policy and planning who joined the team last year. I don't know if she's with us or not, but I'll skip over community powered infrastructure and go to Office of Disability Affairs. I think Rachel had just started the last time we gave a presentation. She has come in and just knocked our socks off with her efficiency and getting through the backlog of ADA requests that we have. And found some ways to build out a more efficient system already. So we're excited to have her have joined the team. Going back up to community powered infrastructure.
What is Office of Disability Affairs? Do we need that position? Yeah, we need to cut Vision Zero for sure.
Daniel Stevenson, I believe, is behind me. Daniel has single-handedly wrapped his arms around that newly rebranded INIP program, where we are now having a grant opportunity on an annual basis that includes INIP, art in the right of way, and tactical urbanism. And so I believe Daniel actually.
It always reminds me of like Suburban Commando whenever I hear tactical urbanism.
Get it as well. The first year nominees for, or awardees, I should say, for community powered infrastructure. And sometime in December, we'll be having a press event for that, and want to make sure that you all get invited to that. And beyond that, I'd also point out to the lending library. The reason being is we talked about this year's budget being an austere budget, a budget of live within our means.
It really doesn't look that way.
Budget season last year to ask for an additional appropriation to support that lending library. That's something that we asked you to support earlier this year in the spring fiscal. And you doing so allowed us to hit the ground running, get that up and running. And we've actually gotten national attention on both the lending library and the fatal crash review team road safety audits. And so I point out those two things just because I think it demonstrates how seriously the city, through our partnership together, is taking pedestrian safety, and that we're getting accolades nationally for those creative approaches. Speaking of safety, obviously Vision Zero is well underway. The task force has now met in person, and we've reviewed the Burgess&Nyepel contract that we have. And as of either late last week or early this week, we have submitted the paperwork to create the Vision Zero administrator position. So our intent is
$100,000
when the budget allocation hits next January to have that position filled as quickly as possible, if not on day one of the new year. And finally, solid waste contract procurement has been under the Policy and Planning Division, just managing that project. And a quick update on that. I know it's something that we've talked about in the past, but the first RFP closed back, I think, in July. We took 3 of the 4 contracts to board last week. That final contract will go to board at the board meeting in December. And so the 4 processing contracts will be in place here by the end of this year. The second RFP closes here imminently. That is for the hauler vendor contracts. And those hauler vendor contracts, we have enough time to get them locked so that by the end of 2025, when the existing contracts expire, those contractors that we select and will be in place will be able to begin service immediately then, January 1st of 2026. So we had a very conservative timeline, if you recall, from the solid waste minimization study that we've been on, allowing a lot of buffer space. Turns out that's a good thing that we did that because we've needed some buffer space as we've worked through some kinks. But the team has done a great job in doing that, and we're still on track to have those contracts in place and be able to transition services smoothly beginning in 2026. Thanks, Sam. Mo McReynolds, I should say Morgan Mickelson, left the department since the last time we gave a quarterly update, and so we wish her well now out at the airport. And Mo McReynolds has stepped into the role.
Which is funny because if I remember right, Morgan Mickelson was really trying to push to have a department office of sustainability in Indianapolis. It started with the committee, and then it became a department, and then the committee never meets, which is unbelievable to me. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, when was the last time? But now I think Morgan is working at something to do with the airport and sustainability over there, which is completely stupid. When was the last time they even had a meeting anyway? I'll look.
As the interim director for the office.
This is funny right here. Solar for All. Work with partner organizations for low-income home solar installation. Really? This is like that whole infrastructure bill. Hey, we want to put up car chargers and low-income neighbors. Really? You really think people over in Section 8 housing have a Tesla? And they're like, oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for letting me plug this in for nothing. They're going to rip it apart, steal the copper, and sell it to go buy more drugs. That's what's going to happen with it.
Sustainability. I believe Mo is with us and can briefly speak to slides 5 and 6.
Mo money.
Thank you, Director. I'm Mo McReynolds. I use she, her pronouns. I've been in our office for...
Oh, no. Oh, no. Even Adamson's like... Oh, that is so funny. Oh, look at the look on Adamson. You give that JD Vance look. He's laughing too. He's like, "What the crap?" Oh, that was just so good. I'm sorry, Mo. This will not. If you're watching this, Mo, it's not over. I will laugh every single time. Oh, God, you guys are the worst. The absolute worst.
About 4 years, and as Director Hurd said, I'm now serving as the interim director. So to tell you a little bit better what our office has been up to this year, we've received and have been awarded, have yet to receive, and working on the grant agreements with the federal government, about $30 million in federal grants through the Inflation Reduction Act, otherwise known.
How does that reduce inflation? No one can give me an actual answer to that, and I would like one. Hey, Mo, how does this grant help reduce inflation? Please tell me.
Known as IRA. So those have taken the form of a few different agencies, including the Federal Highway Authority.
There it is. There it is. The charging and fuel infrastructure, federally funding to work with community partners for publicly accessible vehicle charging station, aka it's going to be a giant scam.
And the Department of Energy. There's also an additional grant, quote unquote, formula funding through the DOE in the form of the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant.
This is unbelievable. What a waste of money.
That previous slide shows you a little bit of the descriptions of what those various projects are going to do. We have also, the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant was a part of the Obama-era American Revitalization and Recovery Act, and there were some funds that our office used in partnership with the Indiana Neighborhood Housing Partnership, INHP, at that time, about 2009, 2010, to create a revolving loan fund for energy efficiencies. It had some starts and stops, and so with this new influx of EECBG funds, we decided to revitalize that and repurpose that a little bit with INHP, but also with a new organization called the IEIF, which stands for the Indiana Energy Independence Fund.
What?
Which is now a green bank in Indiana, which our office has
Scam
helped
bank.
incubate. And again, repurposing some of that with INHP. We continue management of the It's My City contract. However, we'll be moving that over and sharing that with our colleagues in Stormwater into 2025. And then the management of the No Zone program, which we do as part of CMAQ with Federal Highway. We also, this year, were able to host the Midwest Climate Summit as the Indianapolis host at IU Indy in April, and received an additional grant to execute the Indianapolis Thriving Neighbors series from a coalition, a nationwide organization that works in our area.
Okay, so they haven't had a meeting since April. So they've only had 2 meetings this year. And if I remember right, they had, what, 4 meetings last year, or the previous year, and then 5 meetings. So they're dwindling down. So they had 5, then 4, then 3. They only had 2. They didn't even match it up to this year, and they're not going to have any more. Why are you even around? Why is this committee even around? Get rid of it. Cut to Department 2.
USDN, the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. And those are our updates. If there are any questions, I'm glad to answer them. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, Mo. We'll keep moving through the presentation here. I will let everyone know that Kyle Bloyd is out on paternity leave. So we are all excited to meet the new addition to his family and new addition to Team DPW, hopefully sooner than later. Everyone.
What does a communication director do? They just tell people stuff,
so
right?
Albany, if you and the rest of the comms team want to stand up, Albany is stepping up and serving as the role of interim, and did a great job over the last few days in storm.
Why does she sound familiar?
And I thought did a great job on TV today if you saw her. So thank you, Albany, for stepping in. And also, new to the team since last we had a quarterly presentation is Divine Triplet, who joins us
the
from
Keffer Institute,
where she used to be on the other
side.
Oh,
that's why, the Keffer Institute. That's why I know.
And joining Team DPW. I won't belabor this, but I do want to point out specifically Pedestrian Safety Month. I hope you all found as useful the information we were pushing on social media all throughout the month of October.
No, we didn't actually.
And also through press releases and trying to get some earned media that way. We took a very proactive
Hey, oh, okay.
posture as it relates to pedestrian safety during that month, and I thought did a great job, and want to give kudos to the team for being proactive there.
Okay.
I also want to talk about
this thing is the worst.
communications
All
as it
right,
relates-
so this thing is the absolute worst. This is the Henry Street Bridge. It's basically going to be helping connect the west side to downtown. That's where the Alanco building is going to be. But look how disgusting that whole thing is going to be. It's $43 million for this piece of shit bridge. Man, we're just getting totally hosed on this whole thing. How much do these rings cost? Can we kill like $5 million off of that bill just by getting these dumbass rings off of here? And besides, we all know that this is just going to be a good bridge for the homeless people. They're going to be hanging out, harassing people, doing their little tricks like they do over in Garfield Park.
It's to community engagement, and so Chairman Jones, I know that Henry Street is a project that we've discussed for years now, and in very robust ways over the last 2 years together. And hope you all saw the coin, Chairman, or not Chairman, excuse me, but Councilor Gibson saw you walk in, and these were a little bit of a memento from the groundbreaking for the Henry Street project, and wanted to share those with you all because it took a lot of heavy lifting and time and building trust with the community, trust that we lacked in some areas. I think we had done a great job of gaining the trust of the surrounding geographic community. I think you all have heard me talk about this before, but for folks maybe tuning in for the first time, we needed to also gain the trust of the broader community as it relates to the impact that the project was going to have on the former Diamond Chain site. And so I think we've done a good job of earning that trust. We need to keep it. We need to hold ourselves accountable moving forward. But I'm looking forward to the successful completion of that project, and the communications team, and then Shannon Killian, our stormwater administrator, who's the project manager for that project, deserve a special shout out for all the hard work that they've done. Next slide, please. Environmental services, Nate and your team, if you're here, take a bow. Always hard at work behind the scenes, and appreciate everything they do. I will point out, if you've heard of this from your constituents, just again being transparent as we always strive to be, we did shut down one tox drop site. You may have heard about that over off Post Road. That was a property that's owned by IMPD, and IMPD requested that we shut that site down. And so if communication on that was lacking on our end, for that we do apologize. We have been out there monitoring the site, making sure that there's information posted on the window, things of that nature. When there was a scheduled drop-off, we had staff out there to make sure that we were deterring people, because we certainly don't want illegal dumping or something like that. But do want to be transparent about that we were asked by our partners at IMPD to no longer utilize that site, and we respected that request. Next slide, please. Solid waste team, Sean, if you're here, and Katie as well. Thanks for being here. Solid Waste has had really, I think, a great track record this year. If you look at their successful completion rates, well over 99.9%. I know how important trash service is. That's why I belabored the RFP process point earlier. But if you think about an over 99.9% completion rate, I think that's a pretty good batting average. And I also would point to that third bullet point. It's
what does
been
that
a
even
long
mean?
time coming, but actually moving dirt and seeing real progress made on the new garage. I think I was with President Quick for breakfast this morning, and it's boosted morale, and folks are really excited to see that building start getting put up, and then eventually by the end of next year, hopefully move into that new garage facility. It's been a long time coming. So operations division, if everyone wants to stand up, ask you all to stand up individually as we flip through the sides, but I know it's been a long day for everybody because we also here, as we have our committee hearing this evening, had a snow fight that began overnight.
Because it was yesterday.
So to be clear, when we fight snow, usually those are 12-hour shifts beginning at dark 30. We had 12 drivers and management staff show up last night at midnight and begin rolling 12-hour shifts. And so folks have been boots on the ground out there pre-treating bridges and making sure that we were ready to respond to any snow accumulation And so a huge shout out to our operations leadership. Specifically here on this slide, I won't read all of these statistics to you, but I will just briefly mention here a thank you to you all for investing in our trail maintenance team. In the next budget, you can see pictured here that trail maintenance team out at Grassy Creek when we did a site visit with new Counselor Allen earlier this year. Again, I won't belabor this and read all this to you, but on the stormwater side, and a huge shout out here to both Shannon and also Lacey Johnson, our stormwater administrator on the operations side. We took a really hard, Counselor Boots, this is in direct response to something that I heard you say during budget, which was you challenged us to think about what we could do creatively to raise revenue without raising revenue. And I want to shout out Shannon and Lacey. They took a hard look at the contract that we have in place with CEG to do operational maintenance work. And by taking a strong look at that, they were able to identify a way where if we made a one-time capital investment, we could take in-house work that CEG was doing, and then that ROI over time, as we don't bill them, or excuse me, they don't bill us for the work that they do, we'd see a return on that investment.
Oh my God. This administration is run by fucking morons. I do not ever want to hear that losing this fucking guy is awful. Hey, we looked at our contracts and we realized that if we invested into ourselves, that we wouldn't have to pay somebody else to do it, and over time we would actually be saving money. So you give this blanket statement saying if we were to do the work and not pay somebody else to do the work, we would actually be saving money. Like, really? No shit. God. DPW is full of morons.
And so we purchased a PureVac truck earlier this year that I think has just begun its service.
What I want to know is how much did you spend, and how soon will we get our return on investment? And what is the maintenance like? What are the contracts going to be like for the future on that? Because sometimes it makes more sense to have somebody else do it than for us to do it if we don't have the manpower or the tools, the equipment, the know-how, so that person doesn't break the equipment.
Just for the city.
This is what happens when you have a bunch of white... I know, I'm ranting. This is why I wanted to do public works, because these people are white-collar jobs, all right? These people don't understand what blue-collar job work is like. They're morons, all right? They just think, the trash got taken out. A witch must have done it. She must have used her magical powers and got rid of the litter. No. It was hardworking people that went out there and picked it up, probably got a bunch of poop on them because the asshole down the street didn't want to actually secure any of their dirty diapers or whatever into the trash bag, and now it's everywhere. This is why you need to have blue-collar people in those positions, because the people that just sit in front of a computer all day and talk about policy, the idea people, have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
So far, rave reviews, that's a one-time capital expenditure of $350,000, but we were being charged by CEG that same amount year over year to do that work. So we believe that'll be a net savings of $350,000 a year into the future beginning next year. And so just want to shout out.
That's not exactly how it works, my man. You know what? Just put me in charge of DPW. If any of you guys are watching right now, just put me in charge of DPW. I'll give you a discounted rate. Just give me a decent page. What does Herger get paid? I'll look that up here in a second. And just give me some benefits, and I'll be happy.
Not just for the work that they do, that you can see here in the data points, but also thinking creatively about how we can make taxpayer dollars go further. Again, I won't belabor this, but you can see here an image of a visual representation of these data points, and that's important because when we're talking about forestry and stormwater operations, we're also talking about safety.
Okay. Well, here we go. He was making $125. Okay, there we go. He was making $125,000 a year as DPW director. What was he making the year before? And he got a $20,000 raise. Can you believe that? From Well, is this 2022 to 2023? He got a $20,000 raise, which means he probably got another $20,000 raise. Tell you what, just put me in at 100, give me the good benefits, and I'll do the DPW job for you. And I guarantee you, within a year or a year and a half, I will vastly exceed than what this guy's doing right now. Holy shit.
Trying to bring everything back to safety, right? When I first met with you all this year, we talked about that was going to be our focal point this year. And so even our operations work, our maintenance work is safety work. When you think about line of sight, Councilor Gibson, I think this is in your district over off Fall Creek, and you took the time to come out, and thank you for doing that. That means a lot to the students when you all come and visit.
I can't stand this guy. I'm so glad that he's gone, or that he's leaving.
So this is the first of 2 slides on our signs and signals division. Again, paramount for safety, and I would just call out here, thank you again for the additional investment in our traffic safety operations so that we can have more boots on the ground doing work into the coming year. Next slide. I take a moment on this slide again. I don't want to just read all of this to you. Emergency response. I had a conversation sort of late in the year last year with Deputy Chief Adams at IMPD, and the question was, could DPW be a partner and help us installing public safety cameras? When they have to go out and contract that work out and pay a vendor to do that work, there's additional taxpayer expense. And so again, Councilor Boots, to the point that you made during budget and listening and answering that, this department has taken a very proactive approach to being a good partner, making sure that we were utilizing the resources we had in-house.
Oh my God! So you just trained some people to do the same job, so you don't have to. Here's the problem, though: is like you have people wearing multiple hats now, and you have to try and keep those people happy, which requires them getting paid more. Because if you're doing more, you're obviously getting paid more, and then making sure that they're happier at that place, and you know. God, this is just so basic shop foreman stuff right here.
Another department, not just the Department of Public Works. So fleet services, I don't think we've shouted you out yet. If the fleet team wants to stand. Another group that you don't think of, perhaps.
Maybe,
when
hey,
think
you
of
know,
Snowfight.
I always think of fleet services every single time I think of DPW. Hey, how are the boys in the back doing? That's what I want to know. Not the communications people.
But a group that's been hard at work today, as even just trucks get out on the road and maybe don't have to drop their plows, we still see mechanical issues. And so when there's a snow fight, there's a call out at the fleet service garages as well. And so
By the way, when they say 32,800 work orders completed, this could be anything as in a turn signal bulb is not working, an oil change, something dumb like that.
That heavy lift, and despite the staffing challenges you see, you can see here a 92 completion rate on work orders. And so you might ask, well, what happens on those work orders that don't get completed? That work gets contracted out, it gets sent to vendors. And that, again, is a preamble to part of the conversation we're going to have during the fiscal later on. Special events. I think this might be the last slide on operations.
Thank God.
We're getting close to it. What I'd say here on special events is you all remember the NBA All-Star Game.
Gross.
We all remember Taylor Swift. And we've bookended this special event year with 2 just signature events that I think any community in the entire country would be happy to host, just one of. Well, we hosted the 500. We hosted the Combine. I could keep going on and on and on. And this team answers the call, and bookended by 2 signature events, one where we fought snow in the middle of it, and the other where we got out and the next day started mock snow flight, and here we are 2 weeks later in a snow fight. So the folks that are pulling off those events, Steve Pruitt, Shana, the whole team, the folks that are pulling off those events are the same folks that are going to get us through these snow fights, going to get us through these winter months. And so if nothing else, I want to just thank them for that work. I want to acknowledge it. And I want you all to know that despite my absence in the coming month of December, the team that does the real work is intact, and they're ready to answer the call, and they're going to do their jobs. And I have the absolute utmost confidence in them too.
Wonderful.
So So with that, DPW street operations, you can see here when Zach or myself or others are pestering you about, we need your D4 list, we need your D4 list. This is the work of D4 this year. It's important work. It's sort of the rapid response that we have the ability to be flexible and get out to meet really acute needs that you might have. Counselor Evans thinking about, it wasn't Bertha, but there was a big one right at the beginning of the year in your district that now is escaping me, that it was an emergency.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them. Fair enough. Fair enough. And then, of course, our least favorite topic, potholes, but want to be transparent, provide the data here year over year on pothole requests. And those, of course, come in through the MAC, come in through requesting.
It took a month and a half to get a pothole fixed in front of my house. I got a bag of cold asphalt and I was going to fix it myself, and nobody from the trustee's office, nobody from DPW, none of the elected officials that I called up or messaged, nobody could give me an answer if I was going to get fined for fixing my own pothole. So I just had to wait. I had to wait for a month and a half for them to finally fix it. So you know what? Fuck them.
And we have a very high completion rate on those requests.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So that gets us to engineering. Engineering team, if you'd stand and wave, please. Mark St. John, maybe take a bow back there. Mark is the newest face and is new since the last time we've had a quarterly update. I will joke and tell you that I got a somewhat perturbed phone call, although in a playful way, from Mayor Myers down in Greenwood. We were able to recruit Mark successfully away from that community, and we're very thankful to have him. He actually lives here in Indianapolis. I think he wanted to work in the community, serve in the community that he lives in.
Mark St. John, huh? That's not his real name, is it?
Administrator. So when we think about safety, again, Mark's going to play a very important role there moving forward. Beyond Mark's addition to the team, I would call out here
that's his real name.
Two things.
Oh,
Number
okay.
one, the $20 million Safe Streets for All grant.
Civil engineer.
We continue to punch above our weight when it comes to being successful in receiving additional resources back to the evergreen point of needing to continue to force multiply and grow our revenue creatively. And then also, this is hot off the presses, and just a tease here, we won't get into the weeds on it, but we did get pre-approval for $35 million worth of projects through the MPO next year. If you recall from earlier in the spring, we were really excited about receiving $30.4 million, so we continue to see potentially more investment there. I'm optimistic because I think, given recent history, we don't get that pre-approval unless the actual approval comes through. So we're excited about perhaps a significant number of transformative investments.
You have to remember, too, that these grants are because they're doing something that's already a scam, like $20 million for Safe Streets for All. It's probably because they were like, all right, we're going to have to do this plan, which would probably add like a bike lane or whatever, or clean something up for a bike lane. But we're going to need $20 million for that. Oh, okay, well, here you go. By the way, use some of that money for something else, too.
Being announced.
That's so ridiculous.
Safety was paramount in those applications this year. So with that, we will get through the construction season sides pretty quickly here. I won't read all of these to you, but you can see in the first slide the...
Hold on. Looks like you're trying to pull a fast one there, bucko.
So with that, we will get through the construction season sides pretty quickly here.
Yeah, that's what you tried doing, huh? Nice try. Nice try. All right, what do we got here, boys? Sidewalk and trail, spent $26 million on that. Let's see, I don't see my district on there at all. Don't see my district anywhere. Actually, I don't see my district anywhere on here, huh? Except for the county-wide sidewalk displacement. Wonderful. God, I hate you all.
I won't read all of these to you, but you can see in the first slide.
Nice try. Okay, we got residential street reconstruction for my district. $7.6 million. But you know what? Look at how many districts is all covering. for 1, 2, countywide crack sealing. Seal your crack.
The ROI, just from a output basis, number of ADA curb ramps, sidewalks, bike lanes.
Hold on. Yep, still not. My district is 16, by the way.
Etc.
Next.
And then you can see here
Wonderful.
the project list that Sam, I think, will quickly.
Wonderful. My McCormick, my city councilor, as usual, not doing shit. Shocker. And she wanted to become senator.
Pages are the completed
She's worse.
projects.
Fiona is the
And you can
absolute
see the
fucking
projects
worst.
that are underway this year, and the projects.
Oh,
that
there we
are
go. Farley.
going out to
There
bid.
it is. There it was. I just saw it. 3621. Where is it? Awesome. But that goes to 11 as well for a bike trail.
see
I
the
don't give a
projects
shit
that are
about
underway.
that. I want the roads fixed. Farley and Tops Creek drainage improvement.
This year, and the projects that are going out to bid to be started this year, started early next year. And these, of course, these project lists, you can always find in these quarterly updates. You can find on our website. We just want to be transparent and provide all of the information to you here in this document. So.
And then before we flip over to the details from our year-end fiscal, just wanted to take a moment to thank our outgoing director, Brandon, for all his work here over the last couple of years.
We got Nick Roberts over here taking a picture. Now you got people standing. Like, really? Who cares? All right. I could not even get an answer from DPW about fixing potholes. I couldn't. You know what? The trash can that got set on fire over by the park by me. Nope, nothing ever happened to that. All right, so everybody over there might be like, oh my God, you're going to be so hard to replace and everything. I'm like, yeah, well, he sucked. Whatever. I don't care. He wanted DEI training for fixing potholes. I couldn't get an answer on fixing the pothole that I wanted in front of my house. I wanted to have fixed in front of my house. I wanted to know what was going on with this trash can that some homeless dude set on fire and parked on the street from me. I couldn't get an answer on there was a giant hole over on the corner of Rockville and Lyndhurst, and nobody gave me an answer. DPW and the trustee's office could not give him an answer. I can't ask Fiona over here because she's got me blocked on Facebook. She doesn't return any of my emails, and I'm finding out that Republicans aren't returning my emails either.
That was, to be clear, that was not in my.
And before we get too far into this one too, I thought it was appropriate too, is having been someone who sat on both this side and this side of the railing here, on behalf of the team that values and appreciates all that you've done for the department, and again, you went through the whole list. We have a small token of appreciation for you. I know you're leaving us to spend more time with your family, which we love, but still hate at the same time. But we want to thank you and thank them for sharing you with us for all this time. So we have a little going away gift for you. Specially made. We play soccer. So, and then the other side is very cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all. That was unnecessary, but I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's what went through my head. It's going to take me a while to reprogram.
Well, Director Herget, before we move on, as the committee, we would just like to take a moment to show our appreciation for you. We thank you very much. Two words that come to mind from me when I think of you is transparency. You bring that up multiple times, and listening. You mentioned it with Councilor Boots. I feel like when you came on in snow season, so I think it's appropriate that our last meeting is in snow season as well. You listened to us and you were very transparent, and that really helps us with our constituents. Sometimes we have tough situations that we have to deal with. Things aren't easy, as we started the committee meeting with some tough situations, but you handle it with grace and humility, and you help us lead. But you led a great team. You have a great team behind you. We know that we're in good hands, and we thank you very much for everything that you've done for us. And we hope that you can enjoy your time with your family, and you will be missed. But thank you for everything that
Don't
you've
care.
done for us.
If I were mayor, I would have fired him. He would have been one of the first people that I fired.
So thank you.
This is the problem, though. Like, sure, he might be a good guy for transparency and openness and everything, but he doesn't understand, like, how this stuff works either. Like, he's now talking where it's like, huh, that's so weird. So we could save money if we just did things in-house? Whoa! His mind was melted. He saw God. Oh man, that's just the kind of like baseline things like you should know. Is like, does it make more sense for us to do it, or should we hire a third party to do it? And if you're going in there as a director, that should be one of the first things that you should be doing, other than putting out fires. As like having a team. I'm pretty sure if you're allowed to hire a Vision Zero administrator, I'm sure you could hire a few low-paying positions to figure this stuff out.
For Director Herget on his, any other comments, questions for him?
Yeah, I think it's definitely bittersweet, but to hear those words from you, Madam Chair, reminded me that, you know, after I was sworn in, you worked on the council side, and as the former vice president shared, I mean, we've been through some pretty wild times together, and so thank you. I know I've yelled sometimes. And
I've never yelled.
no, you of course, grace is a great word to describe you. And in my farewell to you, just, let me know if you ever need a fourth for golf.
Are you gonna put a little short skirt on there, huh?
Thank you, Leader.
Cart girl.
I know this isn't farewell for us. You've always been a great friend, and it's hard when you get into politics because you don't really know who you can trust and who you can't.
Yeah, I still don't trust you, motherfucker.
And you've always had that. And it's representative of those folks that are behind you. And I can tell they're all shaking their heads as we say this. And
I don't trust any of you in there, except for Josh Bain. And maybe Derek Cahill, maybe. At least he replies back to me. There's only two people. Okay, there's only two people that I trust so far in that whole room right now, and that would be Josh Bain. Well, Derek Cahill isn't even in that room right now. It's Mike Dilk. Yeah, because they actually respond back to me. Mowry doesn't respond back. N.A. doesn't respond back. Dilk doesn't respond back. Michael Paul Hart doesn't respond back. And I actually recently emailed one or many of those people that I just said, and I haven't heard anything back. So the only two people that I actually can trust is Bain and Cahill, and only as far as them replying back to me.
has definitely been better because of you. There is no doubt about it. It is going to be a huge loss to find someone of the same caliber. And so I am sad to see you leave that position. I'm sad to see you leave the city.
He's actually leaving.
People like you. So.
Well, he basically lives in Hamilton
County. I know
County.
we'll see each other again and be hanging out, but I'm
going to tear up.
And not just for what you've done here, your prior role, prior to this, and it's just, you're a good human being. And at the end of the day, that's one of the best and probably the highest compliment you could ever be given.
Okay.
All right. Before we move on to the fiscal, any comments or questions about the presentation? Leader Mowry.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and ditto to what my fellow counselor said, Brandon. It's been an honor to work with you at the council office and in your DPW role, so you will be missed, but we wish you the best in the next steps and where you go from here. I know it's going to be great for you. My question with the presentation, on the construction slides, is it possible to get a breakdown of what's being spent per council district?
So, amount of money spent per council district?
Yeah.
In the construction year?
Yeah.
I think we could pull that data. We don't track it that way, right? We track it by project. But as you know, we are able to pull together the maps that we have. So I think that's possible. It's not something that we've looked at, but.
I'd be interested in seeing if that's something we could do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman.
I want to shout out the mock snow fleet teams and then subsequently who've been kicked into service. But I saw several out running their routes, making sure they could turn around, figuring out where they would push snow. And thankfully they were able to do it this week in a 60-degree day. And now we all have mittens on. So I wanted to shout them out and hope, and fleet services for making sure we have so many apparatus going around the county. And then kudos to the Talks Drop. I know with the east side location on Post being closed, I went to the Traders Point location last month. It was super quick, super professional. It was cold that morning. It was a frosty morning actually, and I was greeted with smiles. Everyone was safe, and I got to move on about my Saturday morning very, very quickly, and I had a truckload of stuff. And so want to encourage the council members on the committee to promote those around to their constituents, especially right now when a lot of folks are cleaning out their garages, getting things ready for the holidays. It's a great time to make your home a little safer.
Being
and get
a
some
consumer.
of those chemicals and materials
I'm
out
gonna
of your
consume
home.
so good.
Maybe my pro tip would be to get in line a little early if you have somewhere to be. But thank you to those teams and our partners at Republic to keep that operating at a high rate. It meant a lot for my family to get some of those things to the proper place. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Wonderful.
Any other
Thank you,
comments or questions about the
Carlino.
presentation?
Thank you for your insight.
All right, moving right along. Next up on our agenda then will be Proposal 350, 2024.
All right. Well, we will keep moving. I think most of you I tried to make contact with prior to the presentation this evening just to see if there are any questions beforehand. And so you've heard this. I will try not to belabor it, but also walk through it at a high enough level that any one in the viewing public can pick up on where we are too. So end of year fiscal, we are asking for additional appropriations. We were asking for 3 specifically additional appropriations.
Hey, I thought we were talking about a balanced budget here, and all of a sudden you're saying, actually, we went a little bit further. That return on investment really isn't there yet.
Your 4 items listed. As I mentioned in
Holy
spring
crap,
fiscal,
you're $7 million
earlier this
behind
year,
on
there are
payments,
from
man.
time to time areas where
Holy
we're
shit.
able to
That's
pull
bananas to
money,
me.
that doesn't have to be switched between characters, but from one existing priority towards something else. And so call that a decision that we have the ability to make, but we want to be transparent with you all because the money is appropriated. It's there. We're just using it for a new purpose. So that last point is where I'll start. That is not new money. That is just us being transparent with you. We have shifted $500,000 in the operations budget to go towards salt and making sure that we're paying the vendors on salt procurement, and then also to get some trailers for our operations crew. Timely, but here we are in a very early season snow fight. If you go to the Eagle Creek garage, it was not habitable, and so we needed to get some trailers out. We got some crushed stone down so that we could put those trailers on there so that there's some short-term accommodations. That is a geographically important area to be able to operate out of, to be able to get to the northwest side. And so we felt it was prudent to go ahead and spend that money, get those trailers in place so that there was some temporary shelter for those drivers and management staff. So again, that last item is just being us being transparent with you that we did that. That was not originally budgeted, but did with existing budget, if that makes sense. The 3 new appropriations we're seeking approval of this evening are also, we believe, very fundamental to the nature of our business and the commitment that we have to our constituents.
I'm hoping the
and
next
very
person doesn't yap so much.
basic services that we need supplemental appropriation for. The first is $7 million to make good on the outstanding invoices on our solid waste vendor contracts. The second is $1.5 million to go towards our operational facilities, our garages. Again, these are the folks that are going to fight snow all winter long. We're looking specifically at investments in HVAC so that buildings are heated, and investments in bathrooms so that folks have the most basic of creature comforts as they're literally serving the public 12-hour shifts.
Dude, you don't even know what that life is about. Shut the fuck up.
Overnight fighting the snow. And then the third and final is fleet services, back to that delta, back to that number of work orders that we can't complete
You're in
in-house.
an office all day.
We need an additional $3.3 million to satisfy the vendor contracts that are outstanding for both the fire department apparatus and then also some of our solid waste and operations apparatus. That includes snowplows. We had to send some of those heavy duty equipment out because we did not have enough heavy duty mechanics to do that work in-house. So the math will get wonky. Sam will get into the weeds more in a bit, but you know that that's a chargeback model. And so if it is unclear written in the ordinance, Sam can walk through that for you. But essentially what we're asking for is $3.3 million to pay down those invoices on that work on the heavy side of fleet. So next slide, please, Sam. So before we get into the weeds and I turn it over to Sam, I will take a moment. The $7 million appropriation for solid waste, I understand, is a lot of money. And so I want to provide some context as to why we are where we are. As you all know, there was a decision made prior to 2016 to acquire some new vehicles for solid waste. There are approximately 50 to 60 vehicles that were purchased. The vendor that satisfied that contract to the city actually went bankrupt shortly thereafter.
Wow.
So, beginning in 2016, when new leadership came into the department and into the administration, we were left in a situation where we had 50 to 60 new vehicles that were not serviceable. You could not get parts for them.
That's crazy. Yeah, that was a very, very bad move.
So beginning in 2018, the money that comes from the steam generated under the...
So wait a minute, what did they buy then? I got to look into that. What did they buy? So it would have had to been a car manufacturer, right?
Covanta contract. That revenue share that we have in place with the Covanta contract, that money was reallocated into the solid waste budget. That money did not used to go into the solid waste budget. When that money came into the solid waste budget, it allowed for us to have more revenue than just the solid waste fee servicing vendor contracts, the union contract, and whatever capital equipment needs we may have at solid waste. So what we've been able to do from 2018 to today is start a lease program where it's a lease to own program, and we've been able to right size the number of fleet vehicles that we have that are our vehicles, city vehicles, that are serviceable at solid waste. We actually acquired 4 more of those vehicles earlier this year, and you all approved that lease again for next year to continue that investment in the capital side at solid waste. Where that has left us is in a place where between that capital investment, the CBA and the demands of the CBA, the demands of the Keys to Work contract, and the work that we do to target illegal dumping.
I'm curious on that now.
Puts us in a position where satisfying the vendor contracts, we have invoices that will roll over, say, November, December into the following year. Now that's all permissible under the contracts, but where we are today, as you know, and we've discussed, is at the end of next year, those vendor contracts will cut off. They expire at the end of 2025. So the city of Indianapolis will need to make good on those outstanding invoices by the end of 2025.
But not me. See you later, guys.
That means that we need to start getting back into the good graces of those contracts and paying down those invoices in closer to real time. So this $7 million allows us to get true with those invoices here at the end of this year, so that next year that delta is much smaller, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a history of why we are where we are, how we got here. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sam to talk a little bit more in the weeds and be transparent about those revenue sources and how that delta grows over time.
Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, council members. So as Brandon just laid out, what we're asking for is $7 million in an additional appropriation to solve a specific problem related to these vendor contracts. And what we have here on this slide hopefully kind of gives a high-level view of the fiscal pressures that the solid waste division is facing and why this problem is hard to solve, as it builds up over a number of years. So what you see here is a comparison between the contractual growth in these residential waste collection contracts, which is nearly half of the solid waste budget. They grow contractually right now by about 3.7% a year. That's how much more it costs per unit per week to pick up trash at residencies in the county. On the other hand, the revenue that is dedicated to the solid waste division has only grown by a little less than 3% per year. And so I haven't broken out all of the different buckets here, but the two biggest pieces of that are property tax. Solid waste gets a portion of our property tax levy.
That's why Democrats are freaking out about this whole property tax thing, because they're so over budget and on everything else. Like, they need that money. I mean, I already see it in the Wayne Township trustees. They're freaking out about it too, because they need money to give it out to other people.
And that growth has been okay, 3.5%, though still less than what the contracts grow at. And then on the other hand, we have the solid waste fee, which is a flat $32 per unit. It's billed on people's tax bills, and that fee is flat. That has not been changed. And so you see year-to-year fluctuations, and that's due to us updating the count of residencies that we're billing, but it's essentially a flat revenue source. So what you have is a significant portion of the solid waste budget that grows by a greater amount than the revenue that's specifically earmarked to fund those things. And so the upshot of that has been this issue that Brandon's describing, where we have invoices rolling from one year to another, and what the appropriation we're asking for here will allow us to do is get within 60 days. So we will have invoices paid within 60 days of receipt as we get into 2025, which, as Brandon mentioned, is the
Imagine that.
final year of this set of contracts. So we think it's an important time to kind of right the fiscal ship on this and make sure we're being responsible as we get into this time of potential change as that process plays out.
What's happening too, this is my theory anyways, that Hergy's leaving. He's known about this, and he's like, hey, you know what? Maybe this is, I don't know. Maybe this is him thinking, he's like, I don't want to leave on a sour note. I'm going to try and do my best. Or the opposite of, yeah, you know what? You guys can go fuck yourselves. I'll see you later. This wasn't my ship to steer anyway. I had to deal with somebody else's crap, Dan Parker, and the person before that. That's pretty wild, though. Hey, we got the invoices will be current within 60 days of receipt. So you imagine the city not paying up? That's crazy.
Thank you, Sam. And the last thing I'd add, because I skipped over, I moved too quickly to Sam, but this isn't the first time, even just in my tenure, and I think it happened prior to my tenure with the city. But in 2021, we had this discussion. The department at that time asked for an additional $4 million just earlier this year in the spring fiscal, because we had gotten to a point where we were so in the rears that we needed, from a cash flow perspective, an additional appropriation because the solid waste fee, as you'll see in the next slide, is something that we collect month to month. So from a cash flow perspective, earlier this year in the spring fiscal, we asked for, and you approved, a $600,000 allocation just to make sure we would make good. And so, nice segue into that slide. This is something that you see during budget. This isn't new to you. This is just the most up-to-date revenue collected from the solid waste fee.
This is what I don't understand. Like, this stuff is thrown into your property taxes. So and I'm not saying this is a good idea, I'm just saying if you wanted to, you could add another $2 to it and nobody would really notice. to your property taxes, and you would make up, I don't know, however many homes there are to it. Current fee is $32 a unit per year, resident units only. Focused on ensuring eligible units are added to billing, resulting in increased collections. And I understand what they're trying to do, but how did this happen? How did the user fee history go lower in 22?
So with that, I will move on to the second ask, and that is the 1.5 million for operations. And I won't belabor this. We've more or less discussed it already.
You know, the first thing that I would be doing if I were the director is, where can we make cuts at? What crap do we absolutely not need that is wasting our time right now? I want these bills paid. How do we get these bills paid, first off? And what can we cut to get those bills paid that we don't need? And making sure that we have a big old powwow with everybody and saying, hey, guess what? This administration is fucking everything up, and I'm here to fix it. You guys are just going to have to wait a little bit longer. Trust me, you guys will get your pizza party.
I think, and I hope you agree, that the men and women who fight snow, and not just snow, but that's the time of year we're in today, deserve hospitable working conditions.
Dude, they're in a truck, okay? They're not getting out of their truck. They're in a heated truck.
And so what we're asking for is a down payment on that, to be clear. I want to take a moment of self-indulgence here and speak that into existence, because this issue will outlast my tenure. But this, I believe, is just the down payment in what is some really necessary deferred maintenance at our operations garages. And I hope that you all and the controller and the mayor in the years ahead, as you think about additional appropriations, as you think about new budgets, will keep in mind the long-standing needs we've had at our operation garages, our operational facilities. I think most of you and I have talked about the goal of a consolidated garage, and I think most of you know that earlier this year in July, we decided to move on from that concept. And so given that, it's time that we roll up our sleeves and tackle this issue. And that's why this is not just a $1 million ask, but a $1.5 million ask. We're also going to start the work of planning and looking at a strategic plan for what investment needs to look like at those garages in the near and long term. Finally, at Fleet Services,
I actually blame the contracts too. I blame the union contracts that really fucked everything up. Because some of them are just so outrageous that you'll never be able to make up. I think of all the pensions right now. I think our state budget is 12% of our state budget. I think is pensions. And I was looking at Chicago's yesterday, and they're in a way worse spot than us. And they have like the same amount of people they did back from like 1920, if I remember right. Like there's so many people that are leaving Chicago because of how bad it is. And that's what's going to happen with Indianapolis too. Like people don't understand how bad it's actually going to get. The only people that will be stuck in Indianapolis are people like me that want to get things, that want to make things better, or the criminals. That's it.
Describes in great detail what I tried to articulate earlier. Because of the chargeback model, the math gets wonky and the character shifts get wonky. But the upshot is we need an additional $3.3 million to make good on the heavy side vendor contracts that have supported not only DPW, but also specifically the fire department. This fiscal was put together with Chief Malone and his team, and I believe part of this appropriation was actually a part of the public safety fiscal that was demonstrated for the fire department. And so this total amount reflects also that IFD investment as well. And so with that, I think that brings us to the end of the presentation, and happy to answer any questions you may have about the fiscal.
Thank you, Director Herget. Comments, Director Councilor Bain?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director. Appreciate your service to our city and the presentation tonight. Just a couple questions. So when it comes to our contractual costs and how the cost of it is exceeding our revenues, is that built into like how the contracts were originally negotiated? Like they were maybe 3% for the first 10 years, and then it goes to 3.5%, and it goes up to 3.7. How does that play out?
Yeah, so I'll defer to Sam on the specifics, but there is an inflator year over year, and Sam, please.
Yeah, the specific increases per year vary a little bit, but by and large, they're fairly consistent over I mean, these are 10-year contracts. And I think, in part, the reality is the finances of the city and the department change a lot over the course of 10 years, both structurally and because of specific decisions that, some of which Director Herget walked through with, trash truck procurement and things like that. So
Also, when you pump a bunch of money into the system and the value of the dollar gets decreased, doesn't really help anything.
So, I would say that in general, the cost of those contracts has gone up by 3.5% per year. I would point out that one thing that causes them to bounce around a little bit more than that is that the unit counts change. So, our vendors are constantly, removing units that have been taken offline, adding units that have been put online, and that does cause, some degree of
Talking about
planning
dump trucks,
uncertainty,
garbage trucks?
with the total all-in annual cost.
Okay, and then, I think one of the more nuanced issues that our city faces is like a decline in population, and we've noticed that over the past couple years.
Hey! Everybody that said that's not true, well, I'll tell you what, we got a city councilor that is confirming everything that I've been saying, and I've been pointing this out for months now, as we've lost 8,000 people since 2020, and those aren't poor people, they're rich people.
That factor at all into like that $32 fee? Could that be part of the reason why we're not seeing that revenue grow where we need it to? Just because there's not as many people living in the city?
It's not tied directly to population. It's tied to households. Those are the units that Sam was referring to. And so as units roll on, when there's new development, as units roll off, when there's less development, those are the
So the unit is the home?
units that Sam was referring to. So certainly it's possible that if there were a population shift, either significant population shift downward or upward, that would lead to a unit change.
And I would just add, it affects both sides of the ledger, right? So we're billed on a per unit, per week basis by our contractors, and we're collecting revenue on a per unit level. So, both sides change as the unit counts change.
Oh, okay. Now I get it. So they're building on per house. Listen, I'm doing this in real time. When you say unit, I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you talking about a dump truck, a house, your unit? Hey, I don't know, man. One could say too, if you wanted to adjust the rate of how much it is, say, all right, so like, if you have one person living in the house, you would say it's this many. And then if you have multiple people living in a house, it would be that many. So like across the street, there's like 15 Mexicans living inside that house. Maybe you should charge a little bit more because you're going to have 15 Mexicans making 15 different messes. But the person across from that only lives by themselves. So you don't have to charge that much. Like personally, me, I don't use the garbage. I just throw it away at work because I do not produce that much trash, and nobody else that lives here produces that much trash, so it's much easier. So I don't have to worry about the $32. But maybe it should be based on something like that.
If I may, to try to drive it, I think where you're going, and to reiterate a point that I tried to make but probably got lost as I was jumbling through a word salad.
Shocker.
The vendor contract is just one component, one burden on the revenue source, right? The vendor contracts, the CBA, other contracts like Keys to Work, and then the capital. And so an unbudgeted expense is actually just in the last 48 hours, one of our solid waste drivers was parked at an intersection, parked at a red light, stopped, I should say. When the light turned green, proceeded through the intersection and got T-boned by somebody that ran the red light. Thank God that driver's okay. But the vehicle is not. The vehicle caught fire. That is now.
Jeez! How are we not hearing about this? Why is this not all over the news?
That is an unbudgeted capital expense now. If you just look at it brass tacks on the ledger, right? That is something that we're going to have to find money for.
How do we not know about that? You'd think that would be all over the news.
To replace in that division, within that budget, with that revenue source. So that it's not, I don't mean to belabor the point, but it's not just satisfying the vendor contracts, it's satisfying all of the needs of the solid waste division.
Yes, good answer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Herget. And I just want to throw out one personal note of thanks. When DPW was dealing with the roundabout up in my area, the first one, people thought Martians were landing in my district, and people were looking for my head on a spike if I did not have that open by August 6th.
Oh, yeah.
At
Then they got
4:30
it
on
all.
August 5th, it was
Yeah.
not yet open. By 8 o'clock, the night before the buses came at 6 a.m., the roundabout was open. You saved my life. So I thank you for that.
And forgive me, sir, but let me correct you. I did nothing. I attended a meeting at Northview Church with you last fall, but Jason, John, and the team did all the work.
Well, thank you for saving my head.
And that's why, as grateful as I am for all the praise this evening, and sincerely I mean that, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Now, serious question. The $32 a year solid waste user fee, how long has that been fixed?
Oh, here we go. I already know where this is going. I already know. We all know where this is
It's
going.
been fixed, I believe, since the late 80s.
Seriously? Okay. And is there periodically a true-up between what the vendors are charging us per unit and what we're paying per unit? So you can confirm that what we got charged in this last invoice, that's accurate with what we're charging the public?
Thank you, Councilor Boots, and appreciate the question because I think it speaks to a lot of the invisible work that our team does every day, reviewing, those vendor invoices to make sure we're capturing all those in our billing, reviewing trash cart requests by residents to make sure if somebody's requesting a cart and getting a cart delivered to them that they're, paying their $32 a unit. We have a variety of different ways that we check on that have gotten more sophisticated over time, but yeah, it is our best effort, and ultimately it's an administrative, task that DPW has to work through and get creative on solutions for.
Sure. And I guess in my ongoing quest, as you've identified, of how do we increase...
How do we get more money through the city? We will tax more. We will fine more. We will increase fees. We do not care. Dan Boots does not care. He wants your money, motherfucker.
Pie without increasing taxes.
Dude, this is a tax, all right? Well, not that part, but...
What are the procedural or systemic mechanisms for increasing that user fee? Is that something that the DPW can do unilaterally? Is it something that we have control over as a council to pass and legislate? How is that done? Because personally, I find it unacceptable that it hasn't been raised since the early 90s.
The solid
Even
waste,
more so.
Yeah, thank you. The solid waste user fee is set in our ordinance, so
you could change the ordinance
DPW
then.
cannot alter the user fee.
But the council can't, though, right?
So it'd be a legislative move by this body. You agree, council?
Just to be accurate, it is the original fee when they built Covanta. So it's been $32 since we built Covanta. But it is a tax that is attached to your property.
Yeah.
So it would have to be changed that way.
That's what I just said. It is attached to your property taxes. That's why you don't have to pay it. Hey, it's free. It's not free. It's a fee that's part of your property tax, and that's why I said you could probably bump it up $1 or $2 without anybody actually noticing. Not saying that you should, but listen, you know what? I just need to become mayor of Indianapolis. I'll have this whole place fixed up in no time. This whole council, except for Josh Bainey, they're all idiots. Josh Bainey's the only one smart that's part of that council. Maybe Maury and Dilk, but they refuse to email me back, so fuck them. Yeah, Bainey should be running that whole council. He knows what's going up. I should be running this city, at least DPW.
Thank you.
Any other questions from councilors? Chairman Evans.
Thank you, Leader.
What?
Did you forget?
You would have thought I just turned 89 or something. I just totally spaced out what I was getting ready to ask. It had something to do with that fee.
Property taxes?
Oh, do we have any understanding of other municipalities or other cities of our size and how much they're charging? I'm sure there may be different mechanisms in how they're funding it.
I think we have some answers, maybe.
They're going to be like, we charge $100.
Yes.
Come on up.
So, Phil Kowalski with Geologic Associates. He is the vendor primary contact that has helped us with the solid waste minimization study, etc. He has all of that kind of data available. We would be happy to share that with you. Different cities really do handle this in different ways. Some cities fully fund their solid waste operations through like basically a direct equivalent payment to residents of the cities. Others do more of a user fee model like we do, but I would be happy to get that information over to you.
We would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And I would just jump in to supplement what Daniel said. Daniel, by the way, Daniel Stevenson, who's the administrator in policy and planning, has been leading the procurement effort, the RFPs that we referenced earlier, that would begin in 2026. Obviously, part of the due diligence of those RFPs and the negotiations on new contracts with either existing or new vendors is understanding price and making sure that we're getting fair price, and then understanding what that liability will be long term. And so OFM has a seat at that table, as well as DPW, and the department is not going to enter into any contract that we would not be able to fulfill. What I would add to that, the asterisk is, I know that through the Thrive Plan and through the work of the council, it is the goal of the city of Indianapolis to eventually have a universal recycling program.
Oh my God. You can't even pay your bills now, man. And you're like, oh, we should do universal recycling. Yeah, because how much is that going to cost? You can't even pay the trash bill right now.
New service added, which would be increased then liability.
Yeah.
And so we are being mindful of that. But as we seek to enter into new 10-year agreements that do have year-over-year escalators, and then seek to pursue additional services beyond that, I think there will be a time in the future where the existing revenue sources, I don't think that is today, I don't think that is tomorrow, I don't know that it is even in 2 years, but in the 3-year, 4-year window, looking at the contracts that we're putting into place, there will necessarily be a conversation about whether or not we want to continue to pull, whether it's COIT, LOIT, whatever that might be, into the solid waste fund to satisfy those contracts, or look at other creative options like we did with the Covanta steam revenue, or look at options like you're perhaps suggesting, sir. So I don't believe that those conversations today are imminent. I think that we have plans in place, and we've continued to work through the contracts and work through the funding issues by being creative and working together. So I'm optimistic we can continue to do that in the short term. I do think it's fair to say that in the long term, we're going to have to reevaluate that.
Did you have something?
Yes. Council Pierce, I want to get in the weeds a little bit. You said property taxes. I understand is there a fee on the property tax bill?
Yes.
Is what you meant?
No, it's not on the property. It is a user fee that is attached to your property tax.
Yes.
So it's $32 per property. So it's $16 per half year
So I
on
just
your
want
property
to
taxes.
clarify, does the city county council have the authority to increase that fee?
I don't know exactly how, I'd have to look into see
Okay.
exactly. I just don't remember exactly.
Well, if it's an
Only
ordinance,
asking it, and then, obviously, as he just pointed out, long-term solutions are going to be figured out, so we're always creative in how we come up with that. That said, moving more general tax dollars into a program that, if it does have the potential to fund itself through the fee, should be highly considered, since we have needs all across the entire enterprise.
yeah, but guess what? You don't have a job, so you don't understand how this whole thing works. You have to pay for it to get that thing, man. I understand that you live with your parents and everything's probably paid for by them, but if you want something, it has to be paid for. So who's going to pay for it? The taxpayer, of course.
That need to be fulfilled, and I don't think most people would be against that. This is actually one of those times where it's like, hey, I'm paying for what I get, and that's
Yeah, and I don't care about
decent
universal
rate
recycling.
for having your garbage picked up.
Leader Maury.
I'd rather not pay for the fee, and I'll throw away my own garbage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of piggybacking off Councilor Evans' question there, as far as, so you're saying it's a piece of your property tax bill?
How do these people not know this crap? I've known this ever since I moved to Marion County. When you go and register for your trash service, I don't know how it is now, but at the time you had two options basically, not by choice. It was like Republic or it's through the city, and then if you were through the city, you have a blue trash can like I do in my backyard, and you roll it out every Thursday night and they pick it up. That fee is attached to the property tax fee. It's its own little thing.
It is listed on your property tax as a separate, it's like your yeah, it's just a line item. It's like, yep, like your storm.
So your property tax goes towards that, the tax you pay for your property goes towards this payment?
No, it's a separate fee. It's added on top of the property tax. Your property tax is there plus the fee.
A property owner, right?
Yeah.
Pay property taxes. And a separate line is there for residential property owners to pay their fees. That's how the fee is collected. It is a user fee.
It's just attached to it
residential.
instead of you having like pay a bill every month. Like they want their money, so they're gonna get their.
Encompassed together is what your property tax bill is?
Yes, it is rolled into that.
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate that. I wanted to make sure I was clear on my understanding, since, property taxes have been such a huge issue.
I knew that's where he was going. It's like, hey, if we get rid of property taxes, that mean that bill gets taken away too? How are we supposed to have the fee? No. It's all separate. All right. Don't you worry, Mallory. I got you, buddy.
With lately, I think it's obviously we're in a tough spot to try to put any further burden. I applaud One moment, please. I applaud DPW for being able to maintain the fee they've had for so long.
Oh no!
But it will be tough to try to put.
That was so rude.
Chairman McCormick.
Thank you. The $32 annually or monthly?
I think semi-annual.
The $32 is the yearly amount. It's billed in two $16 installments because you pay your property taxes twice a year, and it's on the tax. That's the mechanism for charging it to people.
So divide that by 52, right? For my weekly charge? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Dude, that's actually that is crazy. That's an unbelievable, because when I lived in Greenwood, I think it was like $10 a month when I had my house in Greenwood. I can't even remember how much I paid for it in Canby. That was back when you had to sign up for the trash service, though. That's the crazy thing. So what is that? New sucks. Just like, that can't be right, is it? No way. Yeah, it's like fucking 61 cents a week. That's crazy.
Any other questions or comments from counselors? Anyone in the public who would wish to speak on Proposal 350?
You could literally double it, and nobody would probably notice.
All right, Chairman Evans.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to make a motion to move proposal number 350 to the full council with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Well,
to
I
send
can already
Proposal
tell you right
350
now.
To the full council with a due pass recommendation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, everyone be safe going home, and thank you very much for all that you do to serve us.
Wow, that was interesting. So it looks like your trash fee is going to be going up relatively soon, maybe. I don't know. And this whole universal recycling program is going to be a mess. So my guess is right now, they're going to double up on the trash fee and then increase it again if they want the universal recycling program. But guess what? There's only that whole recycling program is a very niche thing. Like there's only a certain people that actually want it, and it's mostly because of John Barth and his dipshit ideas. So that's going to be really interesting. 61 cents is crazy. So for 50 cents, so yeah, you could literally just charge an extra 40 cents a week, and nobody would notice that. I'm guessing they're going to use that as their next tax, their revenue increaser. Very interesting times. This is why I like watching the Public Works Committee more than anything else, and public safety, obviously, because those are the most interesting things. I still have to do administration and metropolitan, but those are going to be super boring. And I still have like 8 hours of the AI board I have to go through, which is going to be brutal. But, until next time.